The snowstorm outside was strong enough to stop most people from even leaving their homes. Roads were disappearing under thick ice. The wind sounded like a wild animal screaming through the mountains, and the temperature was falling lower every minute. But inside a lonely truck cabin parked near the frozen highway, a young woman slowly opened her eyes, like this was just another normal morning. No fear, no panic, just silence. She pushed the blanket away, placed her boots onto the coal floor, and looked through the icy window covered in snow. Outside, the world looked dead. White, empty, dangerous. But for her, this wasn't danger. This was work. While millions of people were still sleeping safely in warm homes, she was preparing to drive a giant Scania R480 directly into the heart of the storm. People say trucking is a man's job. They say ice roads destroy even experienced drivers, but nobody ever told her what she couldn't survive. She grabbed her heavy winter jacket, pulled on her gloves, and stepped outside into the brutal wind. Instantly, snow exploded across her face as the freezing air attacked her from every direction. The truck stood there like a giant frozen beast waiting to wake up. Covered in layers of snow and ice, it looked more like a machine built for war than transportation. She climbed inside the driver's seat, turned the key, and suddenly the engine roared to life like a monster waking from hibernation. The deep growl of the engine shook the cabin, while warm air slowly started flowing through the vents. She adjusted the mirrors, checked the dashboard lights, and wrapped both hands around the steering wheel with complete confidence. This wasn't her first storm, not even close. Minutes later, the truck rolled slowly through the frozen parking lot toward a lonely gas station buried under snow. Visibility was terrible. Snowflakes slammed against the windshield like tiny bullets, while the wipers fought desperately to keep the glass clear. As she stopped near the fuel pumps, the wind became even more violent. She stepped outside wearing a bright orange survival jacket that almost disappeared against the white storm around her. Her breath turned into thick smoke in the freezing air, while she grabbed the fuel nozzle with frozen fingers. Even simple tasks became dangerous out here. One slip on the ice could break bones. One mechanical failure could leave someone stranded in temperatures cold enough to kill within hours. But she moved calmly, like she belonged inside the storm itself. After fueling the truck, she grabbed a shovel from the side compartment and started clearing heavy snow packed around the tires. The icy wind pushed against her body with brutal force, but she didn't stop. Snow covered her shoulders, her hood, even her eyelashes.
The desert looked alive. Heat waves twisted across the highway like invisible flames dancing over the asphalt while the burning sun crushed everything beneath it. Even the air itself felt dangerous. In the middle of Death Valley, where temperatures had climbed beyond 130 degrees, a white Volvo truck sat rumbling beside a dusty loading station, its engine growling under the brutal heat. Most people wouldn't survive long out here without water. But today wasn't about comfort. Today was about survival. Inside the warehouse, workers moved quickly, sweat pouring down their faces as forklifts loaded heavy pallets into the trailer. Boxes of emergency medical supplies. Cases of drinking water. Oxygen tanks. Everything marked with bright red labels reading, "Urgent, lives at stake." Every second mattered. Somewhere beyond the desert, people were waiting for these supplies to arrive before it was too late. Standing beside the truck was a red-haired female driver wearing a faded white shirt already soaked with sweat. Her face looked calm, but her eyes carried pressure. She grabbed the clipboard from the manager, quickly signed the emergency documents, and looked toward the endless highway disappearing into the desert horizon. This wasn't just another delivery. If she failed this mission, people could die. The trailer doors slammed shut behind her with a heavy metallic echo while the forklift workers rushed away from the unbearable heat. She climbed into the truck cabin and instantly blasted the air conditioning to maximum, but even that barely helped. Outside, the desert looked like another planet. Dry mountains. Burning rocks. Endless emptiness. No trees. No shade. Nothing alive except the highway stretching through hell itself. She tightened both hands around the steering wheel, shifted into gear, and slowly pulled onto the road. The mission had begun. The truck thundered through the Nevada desert while hot air shimmered above the asphalt like boiling water. Giant red rock canyons surrounded the highway, glowing under the sunlight like walls of fire. Inside the cabin, sweat rolled down her neck while the dashboard temperature kept climbing higher every mile. 112 degrees. 118 degrees. 124 degrees. The deeper she drove into Death Valley, the more unreal everything became. Heat swallowed the world whole. The tires hummed loudly against the burning road while the engine growled harder under the pressure. She reached for a bottle of water, took a quick sip, and glanced nervously at the fuel and engine gauges. Everything still looked stable. But out here, stability could disappear in seconds. The road ahead stretched endlessly through emptiness. No gas stations. No people. No rescue. Only desert. Hours later, she approached a ranger checkpoint near Furnace Creek. A weather-beaten officer stepped outside his small station and signaled for her to stop. Even standing still under the sun looked painful. He walked slowly toward the truck, shielding his eyes from the brightness. "You sure you want to keep driving through this?" he asked seriously while glancing toward the desert horizon. "Temperatures climbing fast today. Vehicles are already overheating out there." She handed him the emergency paperwork. His expression changed immediately after reading the words "medical emergency shipment." He looked back at her for a long moment before finally nodding. "Then don't stop moving unless you absolutely have to," he warned. "Out here, heat kills faster than people think." She thanked him quietly and drove forward again, disappearing deeper into Death Valley. Soon the landscape became even harsher. The mountains faded away, replaced by massive white salt flats stretching endlessly beneath the burning sky. The sunlight reflecting from the ground became almost blinding. It felt like driving across the surface of the sun itself. The truck looked tiny against the endless white desert. Alone. Vulnerable. Exposed. Inside the cabin, the air conditioning struggled desperately against the heat invading through the windows. Sweat soaked through her shirt completely while hot air pressed against the glass from outside like an oven. Then it happened. A sudden warning beep echoed through the cabin. Her eyes snapped toward the dashboard. The engine temperature gauge was rising too fast. 126 degrees. 128, 130. Red warning lights exploded across the dashboard while alarms screamed through the cabin. "No, no, no, no," she whispered under her breath, gripping the wheel tighter. The engine began shaking violently beneath her feet. A loud metallic ticking sound echoed from beneath the hood. Then came the smoke. Thick white steam burst upward from the front of the truck like an explosion. Visibility vanished instantly as the engine screamed in protest. She cursed under her breath and quickly pulled the truck off the road before the entire engine failed completely. The moment the truck stopped, silence crashed over the desert. No city sounds. No people. Just burning wind and the terrifying ticking noise of an overheating engine dying in the middle of nowhere. Her breathing became heavy as she stared at the warning lights flashing across the dashboard. This couldn't happen now. Not here. Not with lives depending on her cargo. She pushed the door open and stepped outside into the furnace-like heat. Instantly, the desert attacked her lungs. The air felt impossible to breathe. Hot wind slammed against her face while sunlight burned across her skin like fire. Sweat dripped down her arms within seconds. She stumbled toward the hood and carefully pulled the latch open. The moment the hood lifted, a violent blast of steam exploded outward directly into her face. She jumped back instantly, shielding herself while white smoke hissed violently into the sky. The engine underneath looked like it was melting. Boiling coolant leaked onto the ground while metal parts clicked and snapped under extreme heat. Her face tightened with panic for the first time all day. She grabbed the edge of the truck and closed her eyes for a moment, trying to think clearly. But the desert gave no time to think. Every second under that sun felt dangerous. She looked around desperately. Nothing. No cars. No buildings. No movement anywhere. Just endless burning emptiness in every direction. The heat waves rising from the salt flats made the horizon look like it was melting. For the first time since the mission started, fear finally appeared in her eyes. She climbed onto the truck step and reached for her phone with shaking hands. No signal. Her breathing became heavier. She walked away from the truck, searching desperately for reception while the boiling engine hissed behind her like an angry beast dying under the sun. Finally, one weak signal bar appeared. She instantly dialed emergency roadside assistance. "Please answer, come on," she whispered while wiping sweat from her forehead. The call connected. She explained the situation quickly, staring at the emergency cargo locked behind the trailer doors while the operator promised help was on the way. But help could still take hours. And hours in Death Valley felt like a death sentence. Exhausted, she slowly sat beside the giant truck tire and buried her face in her hands for a moment. Her white shirt clung completely to her body from sweat while the brutal desert wind blew strands of red hair across her face. The truck stood silent now, defeated by the heat. But the cargo inside still mattered. Somewhere far away, people were waiting for clean water and medicine. People she would never meet. People depending on her to survive. She looked back up at the burning sky, breathing slowly while heat shimmered around her like invisible fire. Most people would have given up already. Most people would have cursed the desert and walked away. But she stayed there beside the broken truck, waiting, sweating, fighting the heat with pure determination. Because out here in Death Valley, survival wasn't about comfort. It was about refusing to quit, even when the desert itself wanted you dead.